What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Final Whistle. I'm Dan here, joined alongside my guy, Nathan Osler. Nate, crazy weekend of sports football. I know we missed a week last episode, so we got a full recap this episode. Might be a shorter episode, just going to be covering last week's scores in the NFL and kind of previewing this next weekend in the divisional, or this week will be the conference championship. Last week is the divisional round. That's what we will be covering. Nate, first game was Texans Chiefs, the most controversial out of all these games, I think, easily. What were your thoughts on some of these calls in the game, and what went on with that?
I honestly forgot about this game a tad because it was the first game of the weekend. I thought it was going to be the most unappealing game of the weekend, and it honestly lived up to that hype. There were some bad calls, of course.
Horrible calls.
I guess
horrible calls.
My biggest takeaway this game was the Chiefs are vulnerable. Like I was saying before this, like many have said, the Chiefs probably should have blown out the Texans. They probably should have blown them out. It should not have been 23-14. They're a very vulnerable team. People like to say if calls go their way, calls are not, they determine the game, which I can agree with that. The Texans did make a lot of mistakes. They let CJ Stroud get sacked 8 times. 8 times for 58 yards.
They outgained the Chiefs.
That cannot happen. Yeah.
How about this?
Yeah, and that same thing. You can't let your QB get sacked 8 times and outgain the Chiefs. You can't.
Yeah.
Those don't go together, especially with having a mobile quarterback. But overall, I don't know. The Texans, definitely glad they made it that far. I didn't have them winning a wild card game. I thought they were for sure losers to the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
They exceeded my expectations, and I thought this was a down year for the Houston Texans, but they made it back to the divisional round. But other than that, I get the whole calls go one way thing. I guess Travis Kelce did finally show up for a game. He's been kind of quiet this year, Travis Kelce, but then out of nowhere, he puts up 7 receptions on 8 targets, 117 yards, a touchdown, along a 49. Him and Mahomes were finally connected. And Mahomes only had 177 passing yards. So even when Mahomes isn't really lighting it up, the defense is finding a way. If there's one saving grace of this team I really like, it is the defense. They sacked CJ Stroud 8 times. They sacked him 8 total times. And that is how, a big reason how, they won this game. It's just the defense was dominant. Justin Reed, Brian Cook, Carl Loftus, Jaden Hicks, all these guys. Nick Bolton, he was 6th on their rankings for total defense on Saturday, I think it was. And overall, he's been one of my favorite guys on that Chiefs defense. Probably one of their best defenders all year. He's been one of their best defenders since they've had him. So he's going to be an X factor, especially against Buffalo this coming weekend. But I guess my whole case in point is this this Kansas City team is vulnerable. And we'll get to the team in the NFC that I also think is very vulnerable. And it's funny, they're both the favorites to make the Super Bowl. The 2 Super Bowl favorites are the most vulnerable teams that can almost blow it. And we'll get to the Eagles later, and I almost called that upset. I said, don't be alarmed if the Rams make it close. And what happened? It came down to the final drive. But we'll get to that later. But other than that, yeah, it's the Chiefs. You have them going to the Super Bowl, I think. They would win their 3rd in a row. And it's sadly looking like that might be happening. Not if Josh Allen can stop them.
I want Josh Allen to stop him. This game, Nate, I would say, as a guy who I have defended the Chiefs. I like Patrick Mahomes. I like Travis Kelce. I'm a fan of Andy Reid. I like their culture. I like how they win. I guess I had blinders on for when I was respecting this franchise, because now I've been kind of opened to the light, per se. These calls are egregious, right? It's that's happening on 3rd down plays where if they're going to punt and then they get a 1st down, they go down, they score. It's literal game-changing calls that the Chiefs are getting. Now, when you're the best, you're going to get the calls. You're going to get protected by the officials. That's just how sports works. It's horrible. That's not a good thing, obviously. this is, I think they said, the first time ever that every single team outscored the other team lost. The Texans are not outscored, outgained. The Texans outgained the Chiefs, lost. The Lions outgained the Commanders, lost. The Rams outgained the Eagles, lost, and the Ravens outgained the Bills and lost. The first time that's ever happened in ever. So
Nuts.
listen, CJ Stroud played good ball. This narrative that CJ Stroud's not the guy, I think, is a bad narrative. 245 passing yards for Stroud, no interceptions. Also didn't have any touchdowns. That's not good. Mahomes, 1 touchdown and interceptions, had a 98.2 QBR. I mean, he's just automatic. He's Patrick Mahomes doing things. I think Isaiah Pacheco is someone that I want to look out in this game that, coming back from his injury, a lot of people thought Isaiah Pacheco was going to, kind of take the NFL by storm again, how he was before his injury. But Kareem Hunt has surpassed Isaiah Pacheco in carries, in yards, touchdowns, yards per rush. It's really been the Kareem Hunt show ever since Pacheco's been back. Now, I don't know if that changes. I think Pacheco is definitely more of a receiving back than Hunt, but Pacheco didn't have any targets or catches. So only 4 Kansas City Chiefs players caught a pass. Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, Noah Gray, and Kareem Hunt. And they were in the driver's seat, I would argue, this entire game. Now, as opposed to the Texans, they had lots of people catching passes and, doing everything they could. Are the Chiefs ever going to lose? Because when you have the referees, that game was a clear, bad calls won them that game. Clearly. Now, there wasn't a one play that you can look at and be like, if that was the one that won them the game. It wasn't like a PI call in the end zone that wasn't PI. There was just a lot that went on that transpired. Now, I don't know where you go from here on. Do you just got to trust Josh Allen? I wanted the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl this year going into these playoffs. I've switched. I now want the Bills to win. I think the Chiefs are still going to win. I want the Bills to win though. Got a future on them. So that's also why, but would love to see Josh Allen win a Super Bowl. I think he deserves it, or I think he does. But yeah, this game was I watched it and was just kind of in awe of how crazy these calls were.
I think this game was the game that we all thought was going to be the stinker of the weekend. And the big takeaway for me out of this game was mainly the Chiefs are very, very vulnerable. And
Yeah,
wasn't
they
this
are.
the same matchup last year after the Texans beat the Browns in the wild card?
I believe
Was it
so.
Stroud Mahomes? So CJ Stroud, I guess his playoff kryptonite at this point is going to be stuck facing off against Patrick Mahomes. That's what it looks like. But yeah, that's all I have in this game. We're going to see, of course, how the refs are involved in Buffalo. Well, against Buffalo. But before we get to that, let's get to honestly what many would call the shocker of the weekend.
Oh, easily the shocker.
It was the nightcap on Saturday. And what's funny about this is you and I both said there's a possibility that this could happen. Like it was the most realistic upset. Neither of us picked them. So we can't go back and say we picked them. But we both said it's very realistic. And the Commanders went into Detroit and won 45-31. Here's my thing about the Lions here. Great season. They weren't prepared. But here's the thing. You score 31 points, you lose in your home stadium. You're like, how? Well, here's how. They're very injury depleted defense, and that's not really, I get it, it's an excuse, but they allowed 31 points in the first half to a rookie quarterback, even though he's going to probably win the Rookie of the Year. You cannot be doing that as a Super Bowl favorite and allow 31 points in one half at home, by the way, as the number 1 seed. You should not be allowing 31 points in one half. That just shows you weren't going to win the Super Bowl this year. If you're allowing 31 points to a team with a rookie QB and not as much as a good offense as what you have. Yes, the Lions had a very, very injury-depleted team. Very big injury depletions on that defense. But that offense was full power David Montgomery was playing, actually, so it was full power, basically. And they just weren't able to respond. Jared Goff threw 3 picks, bad turnovers. Jahmyr Gibbs still had an amazing game. 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Amon-Ra had a good game winner, 37 yards. Everyone else did their job. If I'm blaming anyone, it's probably the defense and Jared Goff.
For
honestly.
Jared Goff.
And I would even throw it a lot more on the defense than Jared Goff, because at one point it was just they were playing catch up the whole time. You just had to throw some of those interceptions, and they were bad throws. But you're not in those situations if your defense isn't allowing 31 points in one half. And I guess let's just stick on the Lions here. I want to hear your takes of what went wrong this game. I mean, I'm saying it was the defense. I don't want to undermine what Jaden Daniels did, because he was absolutely amazing this game, or that whole Commanders team. But this Lions team was supposed to win this game. They were supposed to. This was supposed to be their year. And
what went wrong, I would say, is letting the Commanders get up on you. Because once the Commanders, we've seen it this year, once they get up, they don't let their foot off the gas. And Detroit was kind of known for doing the same thing. Detroit started off, they ended the first quarter up 7-3, and then Washington answered with a Terry McLaurin. I believe it was like a 58-yard touchdown to Terry McLaurin. After that, it was ball game. It was just belt to ass. Washington put up 28 points in that second quarter, 0 points in the third, then 14 in the fourth. Listen, you can't win games. Nate, you can't win a regular season game if your quarterback is throwing 3 interceptions, and then you had 4 interceptions. Jameson Williams threw an interception. If you're throwing that many turnovers, and the Lions won a game this year, I believe, against the Rams. No, that Jared Goff, I think he had 4 interceptions himself, maybe 5.
I think it was Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, it was
one of the prime times.
That is a miracle for that to happen. That's not going to happen twice. Jared Goff throws 3 interceptions. You're going to lose a game against a playoff team, a team like the Washington Commanders with a explosive offense and a new up-and-comer in Jaden Daniels, who's lit the league on fire. This kid's a stud, right? So when I look at this game, you can only blame Jared Goff. I think you also got to blame a defense as well, though. You're right. 45 points in any margin of a football game is unacceptable. Unacceptable. You give up 45 points, Nate, you're not gonna win a lot of those games. You put up 45 points, you're gonna win, I'd say 99% of your games. If you told me right now the Pittsburgh Steelers are gonna put up 45 points in every single football game they played this year, I'd say sign me up, right?
Yeah.
You don't win football games giving up 45 points. You put up 31. That's usually good enough, Nate. It's usually good enough. But listen, this is the Detroit team. They are the most banged up team in the entire National Football League right now. I mean, you look at their IR, they could almost field an entire roster with their injured reserve.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. They did get lucky to a sense on their IR, not having guys like Goff or Gibbs go down. Or Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know they had Montgomery go down for a few games, but
he came back.
He did. He came back. I mean, we knew when he came back, he wasn't going to be 100%, right?
Yeah.
He was just kind of he was out there. He only had 7 carries for 28 yards. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is just such an unbelievable athlete, right? This kid's a stud, and they used him amazing. You know, he had 14 carries for 105 yards. He's what I'd say the most explosive runner right now in the NFL, elusiveness wise. I think you got to put him up there with guys like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. Now, I know I've had some debates with some people over, is Jahmyr Gibbs the second best running back in the NFL over Derrick Henry? I don't know. I wouldn't say that just quite yet. I think he's 3. But I don't know if I'm ready to put him over a guy like Henry. I think eventually, maybe next year, we could get in that conversation if Henry starts to regress a little bit. But I think how dominant Derrick Henry is, I'm not ready to do that. Getting back into this game, though, man, if the Commanders can do this two more games in a row, Nate, they're Super Bowl champions.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you got to play the Eagles. They already beat the Eagles once this year. Now, granted, was that with Kenny Pickett? I don't believe Hurts played that game, but they beat him once this year. They've seen him. It's a division game, Nate. And so what that means in it being a divisional game is it's the spread's going down, right? It becomes even more so of a close game. And the Commanders are piping hot. And the Eagles are as well. The Eagles are the hot. I mean, Jalen Hurts hasn't lost a football game since week 4. You know what I mean? He's been on fire. Saquon Barkley's the hottest thing in pads right now. So it's going to be a great matchup. But I think when you look for this game and you look what went wrong, you have to turn to Jared Goff, and you have to face the truth, and you got to look in the mirror and you say, is Jared Goff a guy who's going to lead us to the Super Bowl in Detroit? I think yes. I think he is still a guy that can lead you to a Super Bowl. He's already been there with the Rams. Now, if I'm Detroit, right, and say next year, heaven forbid, Jared Goff goes down week 1 with a horrible injury, and you have Teddy Bridgewater finish the season, and you're a 4-win team, you have a horrible year next year, and there's a good quarterback class, I wouldn't be opposed to them drafting a quarterback and moving on from Goff, right? But I think Goff has done enough to cement himself as the starter for this team. The fans love Jared Goff, so I don't think he's going anywhere. But three interceptions in a playoff game is unbelievable. Ben Johnson also calling a flea flicker down 10 points in the fourth quarter in a playoff game is baffling.
It was desperation mode.
Yeah, but I mean
that's how Detroit is.
I just don't see I just don't see why that was the right call. Which Jameson Williams, a flea flicker there. That's preposterous to me. But yeah, this is a really great game. This is the best game so far of the playoffs, and I loved watching every second of this.
I'll add this about the Lions before I jump really briefly to the Commanders. My uncle is a big Lions fan, and he was talking to his buddies about this a couple months ago. And I remember asking him, we were talking about this on Christmas before the playoffs started. And he was like, yeah, my friends and I are like, some Lions fans think this was their window to win right now. Because we saw right after they lost, both of their coordinators jumped ship. Ben Johnson goes to the Bears literally 2 days later, I think it was, on Monday. And then Glenn, their defensive coordinator, goes to the Jets, I think it was yesterday. So they lost their offensive mastermind and their defensive mastermind in the span of under a week since they lost in their first round. So the second round. This Lions team, I'm very curious what Dan Campbell's going to do.
Yeah.
To fix this coaching staff. Is it just going to be promotions? Is he going to go actually try to find people? Because I guess his coaching tree, if you want to say it like that, already has blossomed 2 head coaches now.
Yeah.
And one of those guys has jumped ship to the Chicago Bears. And it's kind of funny. You would expect the Lions fans to be hating on Johnson. I have not seen much hate. They're just saying best of luck.
Yeah.
Because he was a good offensive coordinator. And you know what?
Great offensive coordinator.
That might be a good head coach for Caleb Williams, not going to lie. Maybe unlock that potential that the Bears think he has. But that's my big worry for the Lions. I'm worried that they're not going to replicate what they did last year. Yes, Dan Campbell is an electric coach. Yes, he's very aggressive. But you take away those 2 play callers, especially on the offensive side of it, I don't know how they're going to replicate last season. They might finish a little worse. I still think they are the favorites to win the NFC North, of course. But it might be different. It might be different, especially with the play callers they have. Now, when I jump to Washington very briefly, I'll just say this. If Jayden Daniels had any doubters for why he shouldn't win Rookie of the Year, he's won them over, clearly. I think the only other 2 that had a chance were probably Brock Bowers and Bo Nix. Bo Nix lost in the first round. I know playoffs doesn't matter, but they're looking at what Jayden Daniels has done. He's gotten his team to the NFC Championship. A rookie quarterback has gotten his team to the NFC Championship. And may I add this too? The Washington Commanders, ever since they changed ownership, has made it to the NFC Championship. How about that? A year after changing owners? I think it's been a year. Was it this past offseason they jumped over? Mm-hmm. And they added Dan Quinn. He's probably your coach of the year, in my opinion. After we get through these games, I want to go through they released the finalists for awards, and I guess we can go through that really quick just for something fun to do. But Jayden Daniels is the clear offensive rookie of the year, clearly. Easily. He's looking like a future MVP candidate. It's going to be interesting to have if he can keep doing what he's doing and maybe hopefully not do a CJ Stroud type of sophomore slump where we get our hopes really up high and then it's kind of like subpar than what we were expecting. If he doesn't do that, I think Jayden Daniels could be the NFC's version and start a quarterback, I guess, dominance like we see in the AFC with Allen, Burrow, Jackson. Sometimes Mahomes. Sometimes Tua's involved whenever he's not hurt. But like the NFC, like who are the top dogs in the NFC quarterback wise? It's the AFC is the most quarterback heavy. In the NFC, you think Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, and this year Sam Darnold and Jared Goff. Those aren't really exciting names. You added Jaden Daniels to the mix. Maybe you're boostering that NFC side of the quarterback dominance that the AFC has. Maybe even it out. But overall, I'm very excited for the Commanders. I'm very excited to see what they are going to do against the Eagles. And I guess let's just get into. Do you have anything else to add before we get to Philly?
No, not in this game. Philly versus
Philly.
the Rams. Yep. 28-22. Eagles beat the Rams. This is another good game. The Rams outplayed the Eagles. A lot of people will say they outgained them. Saquon Barkley, man, 205 yards. What can you?
He carried.
What can you? Oh yeah, of course. What can you even do at this point? I mean, first of all, AJ Brown 2 catches for 14 yards. Devontae Smith 4 catches for 21 yards. Those are supposed to be your wide receiver 1, your wide receiver 2. Saquon Barkley out receives them. He had 27 yards on 4 catches. He had a longer run, and Saquon Barkley is literally their entire offense right now. And man, I think they can do it. I think they can win a Super Bowl this way. I don't know how you stop Saquon Barkley. I mean, you have who is clearly the best running back in the NFL with the best offensive line in the NFL. And the last time we saw that, Nate, that was last year in San Francisco with Christian McCaffrey in the San Francisco Niners offensive line. I don't know what's better this year. I think that all around the Niners were a better team last year than this Eagles team, but I think they're very comparable. I think on every aspect. I mean, their defense is great. Their offense is just star-studded. I mean, I don't know how you stop this offense. Literally.
Are they destined to lose to the Chiefs? If that's the analogy.
Here's my thing. I'll say this. I think they can beat the Bills. I don't think they can beat the Chiefs. I think the only way that they can win a Super Bowl is if if the Bills win against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will settle down the Eagles, but I think that the Eagles would have a chance at beating the Chiefs here. Now, Eagles Commanders is going to be a great game, but let's look over to the Rams right here before we dive into everything else. I don't know what they really did wrong in this game. I think they just started off not hot enough with the Eagles. They just couldn't play keep up good enough with the Eagles right there. If the game came down to it, I know weather probably affected this game a lot. And, obviously you're a team from Los Angeles, you play indoors, you're not used to, the snow. That could be a factor. Now, Matthew Stafford is a guy who played in the NFC North for his entire career. He's definitely accustomed to playing in places like Green Bay, Chicago. When it's cold out, I know Minnesota is indoor as well as Detroit is, but I don't think that's an excuse for Stafford. I don't think that can be an excuse in the National Football League tying in weather because the other team did it just better. I think the Rams are lucky that they're even made the divisional round. I think this is just once the Lions went away, it's the Eagles. It's the Eagles to lose, right? The Eagles have a cakewalk to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. They got to get past Jaden Daniels, but man, this was a solid game, a fun one to watch just because of the weather. But
let me just say
feel
this.
Bad for Rams fans, man.
Let me just say
nothing
this.
You can do against Saquon.
You knew. I said on, I think it was last Friday when we were last at our show, that I saw this as a game. It wouldn't shock me if the Rams upset the Eagles and shocked the world here. And it came down to the final drive. It definitely came down to the final drive here. If Saquon Barkley does not have the game he has, the Eagles don't win this game. Let me just say that. And there's a couple talking points I have for this one. The first one is I hinted at it when I brought up the Chiefs. The thing about the Chiefs and the Eagles they have in common is they are the most vulnerable teams, I think, left in the playoffs. Easily. They're the 2 favorites probably to make the Super Bowl. And especially the Eagles here, since they at least played in round 1, had a little bit of a scare. It was a little bit closer than what it should have been. I know the Packers game on the box score looked like they should have destroyed them. They should have scored one more touchdown. But when I watch this Rams team play the Eagles, when Puka Nacua caught that football, were you watching this game fully?
Yeah, that was
You
a
remember
disgusting
when he
catch.
caught that football, I was like, the Eagles are really going to blow this. They're really going to blow this. And when I say this, I'm going to say this now. I'm not one to blame the refs. They missed a hold on Darius Slay. The Rams should have been in the red zone. They should have had a chance. They missed a hold. Could have been a PI. But you know what? The refs have missed a lot of stuff. You can't complain on it. The Rams, they were one of the hottest teams going in the playoffs, and they proved it. I guess my second talking point here is about Jalen Hurts. I know Matthew Stafford was throwing the ball more, and I guess the Eagles thrive on the run. But I don't think Jalen Hurts, basically in this playoffs, is out of the 4 QBs left, I'm ranking him last in the playoffs right now. I would put Jaden Daniels ahead of him the way he's played lately.
Yeah,
I would put Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes ahead of him lately. I think Jalen Hurts might hold them back at some points, because if per se they lose Saquon Barkley and he doesn't put on a great game, A.J. Brown had 14 receiving yards on 7 targets. He only had 2 catches. They only connected twice. Devontae Smith went 4 for 4. Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley went 4 for 4. But your number one receiver, I would say, is A.J. Brown. You missed him on 5 chances. They couldn't connect on anything. Jalen Hurts only put up $128 in passing yards. He was 15 for 20. Basically, all those were short passes. Short. I get it was snowing, but I'm not going to blame that. You saw Matthew Stafford chucking the ball in the snow. He put up 324. Here's the interesting note. And Matthew Stafford threw the ball, like, I would say double of what Jalen Hurts did. QBR-wise, Matthew Stafford 47.8, Jalen Hurts 49.5. Rating, Jalen Hurts 91.2, Matthew Stafford 97.2. So they favored Matthew Stafford this game as probably the best QB on Sunday. I think the Eagles are very lucky. I think they have survived. I would say, despite the box score, they destroyed the Packers, but I don't think they destroyed the LA Rams. And man, if this Philly team doesn't start off strong against the Commanders, I know they've had luck against the Commanders this year, but historically, the last couple seasons, the Commanders have given them issues. And I would not be surprised if this weekend, if they start off very slow, just like Detroit did, just like the Lions, and we saw what happened. The Eagles, if you're watching film on the Commanders and the Lions game, you're trying to figure out how your defense is not allow 31 points in one half. I don't think they will, like the Lions did. But the Eagles, in my opinion, are a very, very vulnerable team. And I'll just ask you this question. If you were to rank the 4 quarterbacks, would you kind of agree with what I'm putting them? I'd put Jalen Hurts 4 out of 4.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable at this point in the season. I think Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback easily, fringe top 5. But yeah, Daniels is playing better ball. You're not wrong.
I'm saying, like, I'll just say this before we move on. If Saquon Barkley per se just disappears, if he doesn't have this 205-yard game, the Rams probably win this game. If he doesn't have like a crazy good performance against the Commanders' rush defense, and per se Jalen Hurts can't get things figured out with A.J. Brown, I would not be surprised if this Eagles team somehow blows it against the Washington Commanders. Because like you said, the Eagles have a pretty easy path to the Super Bowl.
Cakewalk. Right?
They had the Rams this past weekend, the Packers week 1 in the wild card weekend. And then they have the Commanders, a division foe that they have their number on. This is an Eagles team that should be going to the Super Bowl and honestly has the weapons to win the Super Bowl. It's just seeing how that chemistry can work out, because we all know Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown had some issues this season, but appears they got it all worked out, but this game didn't look like that. You cannot misconnect on your number one guy 5 times. I get it snowing, but Matthew Stafford's putting up the passing yards. He's throwing deep balls. Jalen Hurts is not throwing the deep ball. I get they trust the run, but when you're facing off against Washington, a team that thrives on the splash plays, you're going to have to make some plays with the pass. And I'm very curious to see what the weather's looking like this weekend. I don't know if it's supposed to snow in Philly. That's going to be the key. Right now, it says 39 degrees and cloudy. So there's no excuse not to throw the ball deep if you're Jalen Hurts. Get A.J. Brown involved. Put up some points. Before we get like the last game, right now the total for that game is 47.5, Philly -6. They're the favorites. They're saying it's going to be a high-scoring game. I need to see Jalen Hurts just start chucking the ball downfield to A.J. Brown. Because you know what? The Commanders team knows how the Eagles play. They're going to be all over Saquon Barkley to the best of their ability. The Eagles are going to have to play a game they're not comfortable with playing lately, that is the air attack.
Yeah.
They are such a better rushing team, that is, that whenever it comes to throwing the ball, it gets kind of like, I don't know how that's going to go. So I'm going to see how that works out this weekend because I think they're going to have to thrive off of it against Washington. But moving on, do you have anything else to add before we get to probably the game of the weekend?
Yeah, not really.
Besides Commanders, Lions, Bills, Ravens.
Great game. Almost came down to it, right? We'll get to it eventually, but this is a great game. You look, Bills beat the Ravens. Thank God. I really didn't want to see the Ravens make a AFC championship game. Derrick Henry had 84 yards on 16 carries and 1 touchdown. I'll say this about Lamar Jackson, man. He did throw 1 interception, a very bad interception, I will say. Still finished with 114 QBR, or quarterback rating, an 85.8 QBR. He got sacked twice. I mean, Lamar had 39 rushing yards. He played his tail off, right? And I don't know if I can see Lamar going far. He just always seems to choke. He can't get the job done. And then you look at the Bills. I mean, Josh Allen's doing a lot with a little. You know, James Cook's been going off these last few weeks. He's getting 100 yards plus every game, gets 67, gets brought down to earth a little bit. Josh Allen literally threw the ball to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different guys on his team. He threw the ball to 11 different guys. Everyone except Amari Cooper, everyone got a target, though. 12 guys got a target, 11 guys caught a ball, as opposed to the Ravens only having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys catching a pass. Isaiah Likely is their best receiver this game on 4 catches for 73 yards. I think that's just where you miss Zay Flowers. In a game like this, you miss Zay Flowers. But yeah, a solid game. Obviously comes down to that fourth quarter. Ravens make a little bit of a comeback. They score the touchdown, and then they go to the 2-point conversion. Deja vu if you're a Steelers fan. Lamar goes to his right side, finds Andrews, and he fumbles the ball, and he can't hold on to the ball, can't catch it. Moment was too big. Pissed down his leg. Lights are too big. Lights are too bright for Mark Andrews. And I'm not even kidding, mate. That's what it stems down to this guy. There are people, and this is not entire. This is going to sound way worse than it is. But Nate, there's guys you can pull off their couch and catch that ball, right? There is. I mean, it was wide open. Obviously not, but theoretically, yes. You know what I mean? Like, you throw that ball to me. Pads, obviously, everything. Moment was just too big for Mark Andrews. And that's not the first time this has happened for Mark Andrews, right? He has done this before. Game-winning plays, Mark Andrews doesn't show up. I know a lot of Buffalo fans came to the support of Mark Andrews. They were donating to his charity because they felt bad for the guy. I think you do feel bad for a guy in a moment like that because obviously it's his fault. It's entirely Mark Andrews' fault, but everyone doesn't want him to think that. But like, obviously, dude, it's your fault. And I mean, the dude sold. Moment was too big. Lights were too bright. Pissed down his leg. And that's what it comes down to. The lights were just too bright for Mark Andrews. Now, say he does catch that ball, he goes in the end zone. Man, we got a minute
overtime.
There would have been a minute and 13 seconds left with 3 timed out for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, to march down that field and have either a chance for a field goal or, get Tyler Bass set up or try and win that football game. I think regardless if he catches it, I think Josh Allen marches down that field. I think Josh Allen puts at least 3 points up on the board.
Bro, if Josh Allen did that, before I get to my point about Mark Andrews, if Allen did that, That I know we say MVP is the regular season award. That would have been his like putting his foot down, saying to the voters, "Give
Yeah.
me that MVP. I want it now." Here's
Unfortunately,
my
yeah,
thing about Mark
they tallied
Andrews.
the votes before, but
I'll say this. He did lose him that game with those drops, the fumble
yeah,
and then the 2-point version drop. But if you're a Ravens fan sending this guy death threats to the point he has to issue an
yeah,
apology
you're a
on his
loser.
Instagram, you are actually a loser. Like, I'm sorry. Don't be doing that. It's just football. I know he lost them the game, but like, don't remember, Lamar did throw a very bad interception this game. It's not all on Mark Andrews. I know that play was, but please don't be sending athletes death threats to the point he had to issue an apology for no reason. Mark Andrews doesn't owe the city of Baltimore an apology.
Low
I've
key,
never
low key. Hear me out. Hear me out. Normalize athletes apologizing for selling.
Gosh.
Hear me out. Is that a crazy thing to say?
Can I get
mean,
Mike Tomlin
literally,
apologizing for not winning a
yeah.
playoff game?
Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I wouldn't hate if, like, you know, say LeBron misses a 3 to win the game.
Oh, gosh.
Hey guys, sorry. Like, dude, like that is your job. Like, we're fans. I know you don't owe us anything, but like, listen, if I'm mad about a loss, and I'm on my phone, I'm pissed off.
I get this idea.
And I'm a Ravens fan. I'm pissed off, and I go, huh? Andrews apologized. All right, and then it would make me feel a little bit better. Just hear me out. That could go wrong, but like if athletes started apologizing for selling, like not like having a catch where it's like, okay, like other stuff could happen. Like literally Mark Andrews lost the net. Like they lost the game because like it was over once he dropped that ball. The game was done. Like they nailed the ball. It was literally over. So I don't think that's horrible for him to have to apologize, but it's definitely not right to send up death threats and stuff. But if I'm a Ravens fan, I see that apology, I'd go, all right, appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
No,
Thanks, Mark.
but my takeaway from this game is this was the battle of who's going to either lose in the final 2 minutes to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, or it's the battle of the two teams that are fighting for the chance to be the team to take out Mahomes. And after the Bills won this game, my takeaway was this Bills team, this has to be the team. Has it? It has to be.
You know what's so weird about
How many times are they going to have a chance to do this?
Not a lot. And this is the weakest Bills roster we've seen since Josh Allen's been in Buffalo, right? I mean, no Stephon Diggs.
The best part is,
like,
it's the weakest Chiefs one too.
Exactly. And these are
this
two
is the most vulnerable
the
Chiefs
best teams. Crazy. They lost 9 Pro Bowlers.
This is the team. This is the team to do it. Like Chris said here at the beginning of this, like it's their year period. This is the beginning. Like listen, if you're a Bills fan, you've been waiting for this moment. You've already lost Mahomes so many times in the playoffs. You beat him in the regular season, whoop-de-doo.
Don't matter.
It's your time to it's now time. You're strapping in, you're putting on the seatbelt. That game on Sunday is going to be one of those games where we might have another Mark Andrews situation and people sell. I hope not. We might have some more athletes issuing apologies on Instagram.
Don't hate it.
But this weekend is set up to be a good one. But let me just say this. You picked Baltimore to make it out. You changed your mind. At first you had Buffalo, then you picked Baltimore last week. That helped the Bills win. You might have to pick the Chiefs.
Should I pick the Chiefs?
But before we get to that, I guess my final takeaway is, you know what? I'll save this when we get to the awards because we have a bunch of time left because I want to go through these awards finalists. But let's just go to this weekend. Who's making the Super Bowl? I guess let's start the NFC Championship since I feel like Chiefs Bills is going to be a better game, but conference championship. I'll start with game. Who wins and what's your score? What's your score and who wins?
I have. Listen, this is a tough one because you look at this game. Philly's favored by 6 points, right? So they think Philly's going to walk away with this game. I don't think that's absurd. I'm going to take Philadelphia, right? It's in the link. It's a rowdy place to play. I just don't see how they stop Saquon Barkley. I mean, you got Bobby Wagner. It's time for him to start setting up his AARP account. I mean, dude's old as dust, right? So I just don't see. I think this Commanders team has gotten has done the absolute best with what they have. But now it's time for the men to play, right? Now it's time for the people who are going to put your foot on their throat, on your throat from this first snap of the game until 0-0 hits. And that guy is Saquon Barkley, right? There's no way you can stop Saquon Barkley, right? If you're the Commanders, I just don't see a way you do it, because here's the thing. If you start to stop Saquon, then all you do is Jalen Hurts, read option, pulls the ball himself. There's 20 yards. Then they got to cover. They got to put a quarterback spy on Hurts. What does that open up? That opens up the seam. Then you got AJ Brown. You got Dallas Goedert. I mean, the offense is so perfect, I would say, for Philly. You have an option. If they shut down one department, you got another. If they shut down that department, you got another. They have 4 different styles of offense they can play, Nate. They can run it down your throat with Saquon Barkley. They can run a read option offense with Hurts running the ball and Barkley. They can air raid it with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, and then they can play it conservative, and they can throw drag routes and throw it up the middle to Dallas Goedert. They have so many varieties of offense, I think, to where Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are kind of boxed into a certain style of offense that they are accustomed to. With, if it's not there, Daniels will take off. If not, they throw a lot of deep balls. But listen, I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I think the Commanders have a lot of fight. The Commanders have fight so much. It's what the Steelers don't have. They don't have the fight the Commanders have. The Commanders are never out of the game, as well as the Eagles. But I think when I look at this game, I just don't see a reality where someone stops Saquon Barkley. I mean, the dude rushed for 2,000 yards this year, 13 touchdowns. It's brutal. It's just going to be brutal, man. And so I got to go with Philly, and I'll take their spread as well. I'll take 6. I think they win by a touchdown.
Okay. Do you have a final score?
I got to see what the weather's like, man. It says it's going to be 39 degrees. I doubt that.
Cloudy.
There's no way at this time of the year it's going to be 39 degrees. It was -5 here yesterday, so I doubt that by Sunday it's just going to – but, oh, man. I'll take Eagles 31, Commanders 21. I think they win by 10.
You said 31-21.
31-21. I think the Commanders or the Eagles win by 10.
Okay. With me, you kind of took a lot of my talking points right there, so I'll just keep it brief. I do think the Eagles are going to win. I think this is the best they will look in the playoffs. They will make this game look like they're supposed to be there. They will not keep it close. I think there's a point in this game where the Commanders could start off really quick, maybe get out to a 10-0 lead. Eagles fans start getting like, oh, what's going on? But then out of nowhere, I have the final score going 36-20 Philly. I say they just light them up after they go down early. I think this is the game Philly needs to wake up because, in my opinion, they did not look good in both of their wins. I guess mainly the Rams game. They looked okay in the Packers one, but the Rams game this past weekend, I was not that impressed. I get it was snowing, but was not that impressed. Like you brought up the air raid offense. They're going to have to make sure that's working, especially going into the Super Bowl if they win. Because, like I said, if Barkley gets injured for half the game or he just disappears and doesn't have the best game possible, I need to see better things from Hurts and AJ Brown.
Yeah,
like you can't miss 5 times. You cannot. You only two connections on 7 targets cannot happen in a game, especially since he's your wide receiver one. Practically, the Rams made him disappear, and you know how the Rams stayed in that game. You're able to make AJ Brown practically disappear the whole game, and if you make AJ Brown disappear, it's going to be close. I would not be surprised if the Commanders keep it close, but I have them losing 36-20. I would love if they make it, though. It'd be a great story. Dan Quinn will get the Coach of the Year. He is my pick right now for Coach of the Year. But moving on, Chiefs, Bills. I guess I'll start it really briefly. I'm telling you, Danny, I'll just say it now. This is the year Buffalo gets it done. This has to be the year they get it done. If they lose this time, I don't think it's ever meant to happen. I think this is honestly, when I'm thinking, this honestly might be the new Patriots Steelers AFC Championship stuff. The Steelers could never get past the Patriots ever. Every time they faced them. I'm trying to think of another option because I know Peyton Manning was able to get past the Patriots. Other than that, like Big Ben had issues getting past Tom Brady and the Patriots whenever they would face off in the playoffs every single time. When I'm thinking of this, that's literally Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I think this is the time Josh Allen has to do it. I think this is the most vulnerable the Chiefs are. This is probably their weakest playoff team they've had. And it's funny, we've been saying this all year, but they're still 15-2. If they actually tried in the final week against the Broncos probably aren't in the playoffs, and this Chiefs team is 16-1. But I do think this is the year for Buffalo. I'll give you a final score right now. It says Chiefs -2, total 48.5. They have this as the most highest scoring game of the week. I am going to be taking Josh Allen and the Bills, going to Kansas City and beating Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce all in attendance, and the referees as well if you want to throw them in there. I have the Bills winning it by a final score of, let's say, 31-27. Comes down to the fourth quarter.
Okay.
Josh Allen legacy.
I think that I'll paint you this picture. I'm gonna go. I'll tell you my explanation here. I look at this game. Buffalo already beat the Chiefs this year. They say it's hard to beat a team twice, Nate. It's damn near impossible to beat Patrick Mahomes twice in 1 year as well. I don't know the last time he's been swept even by a divisional opponent. Now his division just hasn't been that good. Man, I said in the beginning of the year, Bills beat the Chiefs. It was a great game. I said, listen, it doesn't matter. We all know come January what's going to happen. Mahomes is going to walk into Arrowhead, and he's going to see Josh Allen in those nice white uniforms, and he's going to just shoo him away. It's like, dude, get out of here. So it is almost impossible, I think, in my opinion, to not pick the Chiefs. I want Buffalo to win this game. But Nate, how do they do it? I have lots of coin resting upon Josh Allen to go into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs and then go ahead and win a Super Bowl, right? I've got a Bills future. I just don't see a real reality where he gets the job done, Nate. In Arrowhead, refs are on their side. Mahomes is playing great ball. Kelsey's back. You got to play flawless football. Josh Allen has to play flawless football, which he has. He's played great ball. I think the only way that you can beat this Chiefs team is if you get out in front early and you just kind of coast. And I think it's a very real possibility. I don't think it happens. I think that it's just the AFC Championship game is just such another game to Mahomes at this point in his career. I mean, this dude has gone. This will be his third Super Bowl appearance in 3 years in a row, right? Last time someone from the AFC has been to the Super Bowl, it was the Bengals, and before that, it was the Patriots.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
The last two teams that have not been the Chiefs to have gone to Super Bowl from the AFC, it's been the Patriots and the Bengals. So that kind of tells you how long Mahomes has had his chokehold on the AFC for, right?
He's still young too.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's scary. This is gonna be a brutal 20 more years we've got left.
He's already a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Really? No, he's
already in.
The second best quarterback of all time, if not the best quarterback of all time.
I'm curious if before we get to awards, so you're taking Chiefs.
I'm taking Kansas City.
Okay, so you got Chiefs.
I don't want to do it. I'm gonna do it.
So you got Chiefs Eagles. I got Chiefs Bills. So watch it be Commanders Bills or Commanders Chiefs. Moving on. I guess before we get to these awards, just imagine it. I know there's rumors about like this whole will Kelce retire? Like, is he gonna retire soon? Do you think if the Chiefs win it, Kelce just hangs it up?
Why would he?
That's what I'm asking. Like, why do people think he's gonna retire?
You're a top 3 tight end.
Yeah.
Interchangeable. You could be 1 on some lists. You could be 3 on some lists. In the NFL, I still think he's the best tight end in the NFL.
Yeah.
You're on top of the game. You don't see a reality to where you're not going to win more Super Bowls. Why go out this way instead of even just kind of ride the coattails for a little bit longer? I mean, it's not like Kelsey's bad this year. He regressed for sure. He's getting old, but he's still the best there is, right? And his connection with Mahomes is so different. It's so pure. And I think there was times, Gronk, you look at Gronk and Brady, that connection they had, it was like, dude, like, let's just none of us is going anywhere without the other. So Yeah, I don't see a reality where Kelsey retires, but I think that we're gonna be seeing a lot of the Chiefs for years to come.
Yeah. So we both got Eagles. You got Chiefs. I got Bills. Moving on, let's do these really rapid fire. The NFL today announced their finalists for all their NFL honors. So let's go through these. I'll give you the 5, and then I guess we'll each pick our winner just off the rip. Comeback player of the year. This one's interesting. You got Joe Burrow, who's also up for MVP, Sam Darnold, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Gonzalez, and for the second year in a row, DeMar Hamlin is there. I'll just get mine quick. I think it is going to be Joe Burrow, but I won't be shocked if they give it to Darnold.
I'll take Darnold.
Okay, moving on. Coach of the year. I really don't care about assistant coach of the year, but I'll read those off as well. Let's start with this assistant. I have my winner. They have Joe Brady from the Bills, Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator of the Eagles, Brian Flores, former Steeler coach, and defensive coordinator of the Vikings, and then both Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson of the Lions. I'm taking Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions for assistant coach of the year.
Yeah, I'll take him or Brian Flores. Honestly, I'm going to go with Flores.
And then for coach of the year, it's Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions, Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings, Sean Payton of the Broncos, Dan Quinn of the Commanders, and good old Andy Reid of the Chiefs. I'm taking Dan Quinn of the Washington Commanders because this was a team that was supposed to stink. He took a rookie QB all the way to the NFC Championship.
I like that.
What a culture change in Washington right now for the Commanders here. And how about Sean Payton? This Broncos team was also supposed to stink. I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Payton's a very close second place. But moving on, here's your defensive rookie of the year finalists, and it's literally 2 Eagles,
it's a runaway.
2 Eagles, 2 Rams, and a Dolphin. Cooper DeJean, Braden Fisk, Quinion Mitchell, so both of the secondary guys the Eagles drafted, Trop Robinson of the Dolphins, and then my favorite to win in my pick, Jared Verse, the linebacker from the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going with Verse as well. He's been.
How about him backing up his talk against the Eagles? He had a great game. Now, this is probably the most stacked award right now besides MVP, but I think there's a clear winner, and it just shows how stacked the offensive rookie of the year class was. Brock Bowers is going to be an amazing tight end from the Raiders. He's a nominee. Jaden Daniels, quarterback of the Commanders. Malik Neighbors, wide receiver of the Giants. Bo Nix, QB from the Broncos. And my favorite, Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jaguars. But the winner will be Jaden Daniels.
Daniels, easy. Come on. What are we doing?
How about this rookie class? This 5, I'm very curious at how they figured it out. Defensive player of the year. I think this, for some reason, Depoy is always the biggest, he was robbed category. Out of every single category, it always comes down to this one. Hopefully I don't butcher this one from the Eagles. Their linebacker, Zach Baun, I think it's pronounced, B-A-U-N. Haven't really heard of him much, but he's pretty dang good. Myles Garrett, know all about him here in Pittsburgh, defensive end. Defensive end, Trey Hendrickson, who had a very sneaky year in Cincinnati. Pat Surtain, the second out of Denver, their corner, and TJ Watt is a finalist, linebacker of the Steelers. My pick, Patrick Surtain from Denver. I like them this year.
I'm going to go with Trent Jordan Watt.
That's fair. But listen, if they're going I'm not going to undervalue what Trey Hendrickson did this year for Cincinnati. I'm not going to undervalue what he did. I think us Steelers fans, I'll just say this. We were mad that TJ got robbed last year. I don't think he should win it this year because this is probably the quietest he's been in his career, even though it was still an amazing season. That just shows how spoiled we are as Steelers fans watching TJ Watt. I think it would be funny if he robbed someone else. But I am going to pick Surtain second from Denver. Your offensive player of the year, and man, oh man, this is another stacked category. I think there is a clear favorite, though. Saquon Barkley of the Eagles, and then we have 2 Bengals and 2 Ravens. Joe Burrow, their quarterback, and then Jamar Chase, wide receiver. I think he got the Triple Crown as well. And then from the Ravens, Derrick Henry, and then Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. I think it's going Saquon, but I think Jamar Chase and Derrick Henry both deserve their flowers.
I agree. I think this is Saquon. It's a lock.
And then moving on to the MVP, Saquon, Lamar, and Joe Burrow are all up for it, as well as Offensive Player of the Year award. So that's kind of funny. They put at first I thought like QB was mainly the MVP award, but they threw up QBs for Offensive Player of the Year as well. Good fair to them. Then the other two options are Josh Allen and Jared Goff are finalists. I am going to give my vote to Josh Allen. I think it's his year to win it. He's done more with less.
I don't hate that.
Who are you going?
I'm going with Josh Allen, baby.
I like it. I won't be shocked, though, if Lamar Jackson wins. I will not be shocked. He's also very deserving of the award. I can't undervalue that. I think all of these guys, I think if there's one guy that, if I'm ranking these guys 1 through 5 of who deserves it the most, who I'd vote for would be Allen 1, Lamar 2, probably Barkley, Burrow, Goff. But listen, Joe Burrow is sneakily one of the best quarterbacks this year. If that Bengals team made the playoffs, I would pick him as MVP. I don't care if they would have lost round 1. He would have carried them into the playoffs, proving he is the most valuable player of that team. But I think it is Josh Allen's award this year, but will not be shocked if the Ravens and Lamar Jackson get the MVP. But moving on, but I guess not moving on. That's actually it. So you got Chiefs, Eagles. I got Bills, Eagles. Hopefully we're talking some shocker that the Eagles or I guess the Commanders made it. So we have.
I'm hoping for I'm hoping for a Commanders Bills Super Bowl. I think that'd be so fun.
Commanders Bills would actually be a really fun Super Bowl. I think the have you heard of the Super Bowl like color logo like theory people have?
Yeah, like, that's just
isn't it like yellow and red or green and red this year?
Yeah.
What teams are green and red? The Eagles and Chiefs?
Yeah. There's yellow in there too, so there's
have a rematch.
Commanders, yeah.
That could have been the Steelers.
There's no blue.
Oh, sorry, Bills fans. It might not be looking good. But yeah. How about that? Is that it for today?
Yeah.
We want to end it?
Yeah. Well, solid episode. Did a lot with a little. That's gonna do it. Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time.
See y'all later.